23 of the weirdest stories from Craigslist buyers. From Grasshopper Joe, wanted a hamster. Found free hamsters on Craigslist. Called the phone number and asked, "Do you still have any hamsters left?" The lady replied, "Oh yeah, I just found some." Did I hear that right? I must have misheard it. When I arrived at her house, there were several cages filled with hamsters. She wasn't an intentional animal hoarder. She started out with 2 or 3 hamsters. But one of the hamsters escaped, and it was pregnant. They started breeding in her walls like rodents, and every time she would find one, she would put it in a cage. When I arrived at her house, there were about 100 hamsters, in the walls, under the couch. Her house was infested with hamsters. She was genuinely overwhelmed and had no ideas how to take care of the problem. I gave her the phone number for a small animal rescue. They removed all the hamsters. I adopted 2, Peanut and Teeny Bean. Teeny Bean had a massive facial tumor, 1 black eye, and 1 white eye. He was born without one in his eyeball socket filled with some kind of gel. The vet said these were cosmetic and he was otherwise fine. He was the ugliest hamster ever, and he loved to snuggle. I went to adopt a hamster, and the reason she was giving them away was that her house had a massive hamster infestation. From Howley 7. I went to buy N64 with a ton of games and a few controllers for $100. He told me to meet him at a Walmart not far from my school, so I went after the school day. He told me that morning that he had a cherry red Mustang and to meet him at 3 o'clock. I pulled into the Walmart and there has to be 3 or 4 cop cars around a cherry red Mustang. The guy was sitting on the curb while they took out a bunch of SHT from his car. He had like 2 pounds of marijuana on him and some other stuff. I was sad. I really wanted the N64. Squiggies, man. Yes. I foolishly let a strange guy come to my house to buy a used iPad I advertised on Craigslist for his son. He handed me $40 less in cash than I asked him ID, saying it was all the cash he had, and that he figured it was a fair price. When I refused to accept what he offered, he became irate, red in the face, slapped my table with his palm, said I was being greedy, and that everyone selling on Craigslist negotiates their asking price. I tried to calm him down by saying that I had only had the 80 in for 1 day, and I would be glad to call him if I couldn't sell it for my asking price. He angrily decided he still wanted it, and left to go to his bank to get the $40, slamming my door behind him so hard that the house shook. As soon as he left, I texted him not to come back, because I had changed my mind about selling the iPad after all. He texted me back apologizing, but I never responded. I felt really relieved that I got him out of my house, and also, really stupid for allowing him to come in. Then after, not terribly wrong, but my GF and I arranged to buy a couch off of a couple in a fairly bad neighborhood. After a hassle of trying to find the place we get in the apartment, the couch is in really good condition, and it was retail listed for $1,200. We were paying $500. They were moving the next day and really needed to sell it. As I'm carrying one of the sections of the couch out with the guy, I see a bug scuttle across the couch. The guy flicks it off with a quickness, and looks at me with the most apprehensive stare ever. Long story short, the couch was absolutely infested with roaches, like I'm talking thousands inside the couch. They knew. Edit: since this seems to be a common question, no, I did not keep the roach-infested couch. I got my money back right there and left the couch outside where it belonged. They didn't put up much of a fight about giving me my money back, and I guess the story isn't clear, but I had them cut open the bottom of the couch and roaches poured out. Nick Elizabeth. I love ferrets and I was in the market for a pair. I owned one when I was younger. I always check CriagsList for people who bought a new pet and ended up in over their head. I know shelter animals are still being fed. I saw the perfect post: free to a good home. Goddaughter ferrets, doesn't like them cause they bite. Figured they would still be trainable and the pickup was in a nice part of town. I get to the house and it's a big nice house. So far so good. The lady invites me in and says the ferrets are downstairs. I get inside and it's just wall to wall of toys. Her 10-year-old daughter comes around the corner and it's unbelievable how similar her daughter looks like Verka Salt in the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. It doesn't surprise me how much she acts like the kid in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at all. She starts screaming and hitting her mom for trying to get rid of the ferrets. The mom doesn't even notice her daughter punching her. Then I notice all the animals in the house. There's like a billion hamster cages I see from the walk to the front door to the basement. They're all stuffed with bunnies and guinea pigs and hedgehogs and gerbils and hamsters and degas and chinchillas. It's obvious that the spoiled brat got a pet every time she went to a pet store, and the retarded parents just assume they're all going hamster cages and eat pellets. I get to the basement and there's 4 budgies flying around loose, and then there's a dog kennel. The lady said the ferrets were in the dog kennel. There were 5 ferrets in the dog kennel. Apparently they had watered the whole litter before figuring out that they were so bitey. She was trying to give me 5 ferrets in a ship-covered dog kennel. None of them were vaccinated for rabies or distemperament. I declined and left the house through the reptile room full of poor animals without heat lamps and immediately called animal services. I can't believe people like that exist. Honest note, a bitch. Not me, but a friend. He was selling a graphing calculator and arranged to meet the buyer at a shopping center. The buyer wanted to test it out, but it didn't have batteries. My friend agreed to ride to a grocery store with him to pick up batteries. On the way back to where they originally met, buyer took the calculator to test it out. He plays with it for a minute, agrees it is in good condition, and passes it back to my friend. On the screen, the buyer had typed "You're kidnapped." My friend finishes writing it, buyer locks doors and speeds up. Friend panics. Then the buyer stops, laughs, gives my friend money, lets him out and tells him to be more careful. Almost a Raymond K. Hessel kind of thing, I guess. From TechWorms. I went to buy a semi-rare video game, Final Fantasy Tactics, before it became a greatest hit. Met this girl in a Wendy's parking lot. She gave me the CD case. I opened it, and it was empty. I demanded my $20 back. She looked at me and said if I did anything other than leave, she would lie and say I assaulted her. I pulled out my phone and started to pretend to record her. My cell at the time had no camera, and she started stumbling around, pretending I had attacked her. After a minute of this silliness, our eyes met, and I think she realized how ridiculous this was getting, and gave me my money back. Techie Wonker. 2 of my roommates went to purchase a couch from someone living on the 3rd floor of an apartment building. They paid for the couch, but, somewhere between the 2nd and 3rd floors, got it stuck so badly in the stairwell they decided to cut their losses and just leave it there. From Phantom Scarecrow. I was selling a 1996 Dodge Avenger. I haven't driven it much the past year, and it had been sitting for about 4 months, so I got rid of it before it was a total loss. I'd put 2 new tires, front brakes, and alignment on it a year earlier, so it had a few hundred miles on the tires. I took it for inspection, and the guy informed me that the radiator crossmember, rear driver's shock mount, and driver's rocker were rusted out. It passed, but would need work. I advertised it for $800. One guy stopped by. He lived nearby. He gave me a story about not having much money, needed a car to get to work, etc. He and his friend took it for a 2-hour test drive. They left the friend's very expensive truck, so I wasn't worried that they weren't coming back. I had already explained everything I knew to be wrong with the car. The buyer started pointing out known problems and offered me $250. I got $380 as a price. We were to meet in a few days for the transfer. I met him at a trailer sales office nearby, even though I offered to go to AAA, because it would be cheaper. He said, I took the car to a mechanic. He said, known problems were wrong. How about I give you $300? I said no. He was already getting it for less than half my asking price, and about what it was worth in scrap. We did the transfer. He had us say it was a gift in exchange for some work, so he wouldn't have to pay sales tax, and it cost him $200, even though AAA would have charged $75. 3 weeks later, the buyer called me. He claimed that the head gasket was bad, and the car had broken down. He wanted to know what I was going to do about it. I said, look, you've bought a car off the side of the road, for almost nothing. I can't offer anything. If I had known it had a bad gasket, I would have scrapped it. It occurred to me later that if the head gasket had been bad, the mechanic should have found it when he took it over there originally. He hung up, then for the next 3 days called me 5 times a day. I didn't answer, and he didn't leave messages. A week later I saw the car in a local shopping center lot. It had a dent, so I knew it was mine. He was just trying to scam me. Mississa. I was selling a pair of go-go boots on CL, and I had a guy tell me he would purchase them if I modeled in nothing but the boots for him. Inspector, -34. It was a few weeks before my junior year of college, so this was 2010. I wanted to sell an old couch from my previous house because we were getting 2 new roommates and they already had couches. I posted the ad and 15 minutes later I got an email. The guy said he would pay $75 for the couch. I had listed it at $100, but would bring some XBOX games to the trade to make up the difference. Okay, nice. So he pulls up in a truck with 2 women in the bed. I insist on helping him get the couch outside, but he says no and has the 2 women do it. Then, it gets interesting. He says he only has $50, but if I took the money, he would give me one of the girls for 20 minutes. Keep in mind, he told me this is the couch is sitting in his truck. I didn't know what to say. I took the $50 and said to just leave. He was insulted for some reason and threatened to come back and beat my ass and rob me blind. We moved to our new house the next day with our new roommates. Fast forward a month, I read in my school's newspaper and on the front page was a picture of my old street with the headline "Man arrested intimidating students at a party with a crowbar." My old residence. I read on. His name was Bruce and his criminal background included 17 misdemeanors and a dropped rape and attempted kidnapping charge. Also, just as icing on the cake, he was also wanted in Ohio on numerous stalking charges. CriagsList, never again. Sean is Maxims. Not Craigslist but Kijiji, same idea, different site. A couple of years ago I was buying some DVDs from a guy. I had drank too much the night before and was having a hellish hangover but decided to go get the DVDs anyways. He was on the sketchy side of town. Anyways, I pull up to his house. It is a 5-plex, 5 attached houses, and there is a note on the front door to go to the back. So I go to the back and there are these 3 gangster-looking guys midday drunk and some cracked-out girl with her shirt tied up, barely covering her and in short shorts. They all stop what they're doing and stare at me. "How are you selling the DVDs?" I ask, sweating beneath my dorky Spider-Man t-shirt. "DVDs? No man, don't have any of those." "Want some crack?" says the largest one, flexing his muscles. "Oh no thanks. What about my girl here?" "What do you mean?" My face is dripping sweat at this point. "You wanna take her home?" "Oh no thanks, I saw this AD on Kijiji." "Why not?" "You think she's ugly?" He stands up and looks at me menacingly while I stammer and then says, "I'm just FCKIN with you man. No DVDs." "Sure you don't want no crack?" "No." "Okay, if I gotta go see ya," and then I turned around and got the hell out of there. Z0MBIEGRL. I bought a 360 from a Craigslist AD. The kid selling it was like 17. We met at a public location, Starbucks, at my request. I handed him the money, he handed me the 360. Then he asked me if he could buy me a coffee. I declined. He asked me if I wanted to go out sometime. I declined, thanked him for the XBOX, and left. Well, unfortunately, he had my phone number and email address, as I'd responded to his AD. He started sending me these long, angst-filled teenage emails about how he was in love with me, and I was his destiny, and texted me dozens of times a day. MLBCLUBBIE. Oh yeah. I needed Microsoft Office and noticed that people sold the program for cheap on Craigslist. One guy 20 minutes away was selling the program of $20. Told me to meet at his house late at night when he got home from work. Ended up being in a sketched-out end street, and told me to come in his garage, where him and a couple of his buddies were smoking inside. This was my first thought of this is kind of weird. After I took my laptop out and putting it on the table, one of his buddies tried to close the garage door on me. I realized what was happening, so I tried to grab the laptop and hit the sensors to leave. The dude tried to grab the laptop same time and ended up being a quick tug of war with him. I let go and hit the sensors and decided to just leave and call the cops. They hid the laptop, but I was able to use the Find My iPhone app, which finds laptops too, and got it back. I don't know how the guy thought he would get away with it. Edit. Screenshots of text conversation. I found one too. Edit. Okay, guess I should have pirated it, or whatever LibreOffice is. Either way, not going to CL, I'm going to Reddit. From Rage. I called a woman to buy a heavy bag from her. She said the price today is $35. I said sounds good, but I don't think I can get there today. Can I come get it tomorrow? She said, yes. I get there the next morning and offer her the $35, 2 20s, and say, we said $35, right? She said, that was the price yesterday. Today it's $40. I stopped and said, you're joking, right? She said no, $40 is the price today. I turned around to leave and she got upset, saying something like I agreed to buy it, we had a deal. She stayed home so I could pick it up, etc. I said, that was before the price was $40. I offered you $35 and you said no. Sell it to the guy who agreed to pay $40. Goodbye. She was still BTCHING at me as I left. From Birdtree. Alright, I got a prime story that made me learn a lot about using CriagsList. First off, I grew up in a small rural town and then moved to Southern California for college. So, this is just after the new iPhone had come out and I desperately wanted one, so I found an ad on Craigslist for a guy selling his for about $50 cheaper than everyone else's ads. I give the guy a call and he tells me that his company has switched to using Blackberries and he has no need for the iPhone now, so I agreed to go and meet up with him, since he seemed to have a fairly straight story, or at least it sounded that way. So given I'm not familiar with the law area, I drive up and get off on Crenshaw BLVD. On the NE side, drive up about a block from the 405 and take a left and park in front of this big, low-income apartment complex, like where he says to meet. This is in the middle of the day right next to a busy street. Now the neighborhood wasn't the best, but I'm a big dude, 6'7", 230, so I figure I'll be alright. I finally get a hold of the supposed business dude, which turns out to be a little dude that dressed in baggy jeans and a big white t-shirt, along with another dude dressed the same. Now while I was sitting in my truck waiting for this guy to show up, I see a guy sitting over in a blue Ford Focus just staring at me, grinning the entire time, which creeped me out and already made me feel uneasy about the situation. And once I saw the business guy, I knew something wasn't right and decided to get out of there as fast as possible. So I started to walk back to my truck telling him I'm gonna grab my cash for the iPhone. But when I get into my truck and try to put my keys into the ignition, the other little dude, both about 5'6", 150 at most, jumps into my passenger side and sticks a gun in my waist, saying, "No Hemi, you ain't leaving, gonna need everything you got now." This was probably stupid on my part, but seeing how this kid was holding the gun all clumsily and it looked more like a metal airsoft gun as opposed to a real gun, I decided to reach across, open them door and shut him out. I did it so quickly he didn't have time to react and was already outside my passenger door banging on the glass to let him back in. I figured I was good to go now and could get the hell out of there, but oh no. So I'm assuming when the second guy got thrown out, I was so focused on him I didn't realize the first guy went to go get about 5 to 6 of his much bigger buddies, which were now all at my driver's side window, which was over halfway down. As I turned my head towards them, they all just started reaching into my window, throwing punches, trying to grab me and pull me out, after which seemed like forever of me trying to dodge punches and still trying to get my keys into the ignition to maybe get my truck going to get rid of this, but no go. After a few good hits they connected with to my head, I started to see stars and get dazed and decided as a last-ditch effort to throw the cash I had for the iPhone all over the ground outside behind them. They immediately stopped attacking me and ran around picking up all the bills, which gave me the opportunity to get the hell out of there. I did go down a few blocks and realizing I couldn't even see straight, I called the Lott County Sheriff, which they came and thought I was part of some drug deal gone bad, but ended up these tweakers did the same thing to 8 other victims and stole their licenses, saying if they went to the police they would kill their families. But it's all good now. I was able to pick and loot those 6-pack lineups and all of them but the little dude with the gun are in prison. Fortunately also, they have to pay me back through the wages they make at prison. From Bredas. A MacBook I bought on 2010 almost got me fired from my job. I scheduled a meeting with a fellow, Deucer69, at a Starbucks to sit down and review a MacBook that I wanted to buy. I meet him, it goes fine, we make small talk while I review the computer. I made the unfortunate mistake of telling him I worked for the cable company. He proceeded to tell me of his internet problems, to which I said I would look at his account when I got back to work. He said he had extended coverage on the computer, but that he had forgotten the paperwork. He would be in contact with me when he'd found it, and we would meet up to make the exchange. I paid him, we shook hands, and I went on my way. That night, I open up the computer and find that he has not formatted the computer, but simply removed all of his applications. In the contacts application, there's his name, address, and phone number. I write it down in case I ever need to get in contact with him again. I format the computer and install the latest OS on it. I sent a text to Deucer69 letting him know that he left his info on the computer, and that I live close to him, and if he ever finds the warranty paperwork, to let me know and I can swing by and pick it up to make it easy for him. The next day, I pulled up his account to review his repair call history. I didn't find anything of value, and I didn't really care to help the guy beyond normal troubleshooting, so I closed out of his account and forgot about it. The next morning, I get a call from HR to come down to their office. They inform me that Deucer69 has called into management and informed them that I unlawfully accessed his account to get his personal information. His wife and child are scared that I might come after them. They also are certain that I have stolen their bank account information. Upon initial investigation, HR has found that I did in fact access his account. At this point, I worked in it and I had no official business touching customer accounts. HR asked me to show on the computer where his personal info was, but at this point, I had formatted the computer. I was FCKED. This sort of complaint is taken very seriously, and rightfully so, but I was completely, 100% innocent. I was dead where I stood. I knew it. HR sends me home. This is a Friday, and they tell me to wait for the call on Monday afternoon while they investigate and decide what my fate is. At this point in time, my wife is 8 months pregnant and unemployed, so I'm the sole income to what is about to be a family of 3. I was terrified and felt completely powerless. It was one of the most stressful, long weekends of my life. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, it was constant worry and regret. I sat down at my cursed MacBook and wrote out a letter of explanation to my boss, my director and to HR. I detailed our entire interaction, including when and where, provided copies of all text messages before and after the purchase, and did my absolute best at explaining the situation from my perspective. It was a Hail Mary and it worked. I was well liked at this job, and people came out of the woodwork to support me. My boss, my boss's boss, previous bosses, all came to my rescue and stood up for my character and work history. It felt awesome. HR sided with me. However, I was to never contact the customer again. It didn't matter if the computer turned out to be a fake, messed up, whatever, do not contact him ever again. So I didn't. I worked at that job another 3 years until April of this year when I got a new job and moved out of state. The story was somewhat legendary after that. I should have been fired. 95 times out of 100, HR would have fired any other person on the spot. I have no clue why I was the exception, but I was thankful for it. After my last day at the cable company, I really wanted to sit down and write a long nasty letter to this guy. I got on Facebook and composed a message, but I chose not to send it. I have no clue what his motivations were or why he did it, but I had moved on from it and saw no value in confronting him. Lessons learned: never give out your name, use Google Voice to send your texts and never tell them where you work. Review the product, purchase and leave. That's it. TLDR, bought a computer from a dude who called my work and accused me of illegally accessing his account and that his family felt physically threatened. HR put me on paid leave while they investigated. My job was left intact. From KMGEGYPT7, my friend went to pick up a drum set one time. The lady cut $10 off the price and hit on him. Not sure why he complained. From Deadmonster, I once tried to sell a used high-end stroller on CriagsList in NYC. I've sold a ton of shit on Craigslist for years and years, but I've never dealt with people like these pregnant moms. Super picky. Hundreds of emails back and forth. Asking to repeatedly return to my apartment to see the stroller again and again before making a decision. Never showed up to meet. And complaining about the price, which was low. From JDXT, my friend was trying to buy something off Craigslist, Houston if anyone's interested. He made arrangements to meet somewhere, agreed on a price blah blah blah. Couple minutes later, the guy calls my friend back and says, "Hey man, don't come. I was just going to rob you, but I heard some kids in the background when we were talking on the phone." Free hardware. About 3 months ago, a guy posted an online AT for a free laptop. I figured it was broken, but I could fix it and maybe use it. When I got to his house, he let me into his basement where I discovered he actually had about 200 laptops. He told me I could take as many as I wanted. I only took one, assuming they were stolen. I later Googled the guy's name and it turned out he ran a computer repair shop that went out of business. He was just a nice guy trying to give away thousands of dollars of free hardware. I still use the laptop. But it was really weird. Oh thanks. A guy sold me a computer desk and when I was loading it into my truck, a snake came out. He was trying to reverse shankar his pet snake into being my responsibility. Double booked. I was buying some bicycle parts off a kid in Manhattan. I show up at the corner where we're supposed to meet, and a guy walks up looking for someone. I assume it's my guy and we start walking down the block and chatting. Eventually he asks what he can do for me, and I'm like, "I'm here for the crank arms." The what? The crank arms. Wait, are you selling bike parts? Turns out that corner was double booked for a drug deal too. The guy was nice though. We laughed it off and found the people we were there to meet. Hope you like this video. I'll be making more like this. If you have any ideas or tips then please let me know in the comments. I am new to this and also extremely shy lol, plus I only have a phone to make videos on, so they're not the best, yet I'm sure as time goes by, I'll be able to make them a lot better. So if you like this video, even the slightest, then please share, like, comment and subscribe. It would help me a lot. Thank you. See you in the next one.